Welcome, 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 everyone. This is G, and we are going to walk through the week of July 8th and the following 7 days. This is a very big week. Some would say historical. First things first, if you look in the chart, you see a big mystic rectangle that I've got drawn in, and I'll highlight that right here for you. And that's it. Why do they call it mystic? Because I think the belief is that with the trines, and I will highlight the sides of the trines for you real quick here. A trine is when you have matching energy. Maybe I should say matching element. Fire and fire, you see? So we have Persephone. That is Persephone. Persephone is, well, you know the story of Persephone. She was taken down into Hades. So the lesson with that story is being taken away from your home, being away from your home for a decent amount of time, and learning how to get beyond the wounds and the abandonment and how to make that place wherever you are home, how to learn to adjust. And a lot of that, because it's in Saggy, is about my beliefs. But Saggy is the judicial system and judgments. It is because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. All right. So it's a trine. It's a big trine to Aries energy, 8 degrees. So anything near those degrees is going to match up to be a trine, right? A couple degrees either way, up and down. We've got stuff at 531. And I'll just say right here, 531, we got Jupiter and Pluto, a midpoint up in the sky, Jupiter, a factor. We've got a point of victory, 537. We've got something else, treasure trove, I think, TRE at 8 degrees exactly. And then the North Node at 10. That's a big deal. Anytime the North Node is being aspected, there's faded energy involved with the nodes because it's like history involved with it. Even though it's about the future, it's connected to the moon's node. Okay. The moon is history. So it has to do with fate, or you could say soul's memory, however you want to look at it. Now, the other trine is the same way, right? The same degrees, and it goes this way. It's connecting Libra energy to Gemini energy, Libra energy to Gemini energy. And these two trines are being connected by what is called a sextile. And the sextile energy, I'll just outline the sextile. Okay, so that's the sextile. It's 60 degrees. And then a sextile over here at the other end, 60 degrees. And that's how we've come to a rectangle. And so the belief is that it's like a special energy because there's an assistance here. It's not an abundance of things just easily happening, but there definitely is an assistance, and fate is so truly involved because the North Node and the South Node are playing a big role, as well as Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith's at 8 degrees this week. The South Node's at 10, and neither of these move super fast. Although Lilith has moments where she can move really, really fast. I will kind of retract that a little bit. So this is part of that mystic rectangle, and this is something to just keep in mind the whole time. So it's Aries energy, my freedoms, my right, my body autonomy, my appearance. Aries can act fast and swift. It wants to be first. It wants to lead. It wants to show the way, but it really is a race sometimes with the Aries energy that's not super mature, right? It's real young, so it may act before thinking about something. It may speak before thinking. That's what I was originally going to say. And it's connected to Gemini energy here. You see, there is this connection to Gemini energy, and Jupiter is right there. That is the other big deal about this. Mystic rectangle Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter is the judge. Okay, so keep this in mind. It's Jupiter conjunct Aldebaran. All right, so just to whet your appetite a little bit on that, that's really one of the major things this week is this big mystic rectangle that involves Jupiter and Aldebaran. And yeah, it just so happens we have this July 11th date. Fated energy. Is it a coincidence? You tell me. We go to the 8th, and what we have here on the 8th is Hygeia. Hygeia looks like this. It looks like, I don't know how, it looks like a figure eight in a way, but then it almost looks like there's this line, this vertical line through this eight, this extended eight, this stacked eight, these stacked circles even. Remember, circles when in symbology represent a divine energy. It represents a whole. It represents something that is complete, which is associated with divinity. Okay. Having a line right down the middle of it is fascinating when we think about symbology because it's almost like a separation, right? A separation, a line right down the middle. And for some of us in the States, that's kind of how we feel, even though that might not really be a true gauge of the country itself. But in a way, there are such contrasting beliefs and thoughts and communications and ways of communicating in this right now, where we kind of feel like we're split right down the middle. And if we pay attention to the news and media, like that's what they're telling us anyway, we'll see what happens if that's true. But for the meantime, this Hygeia, that's what this is, Hygeia, this is a symbol that represents the state of one's health. And so that line down the middle is showing the compare and the contrast. So it's the state of your health and what you do as a result of it. It's not about it means good or bad. It just means the state of your health. Where is the health at? So I call it the health report card. Okay. Again, it can be it's not about positive or negative. It just shows you the information. It just reveals what is. Okay. It's in Taurus. So on the 8th, Hygeia enters Taurus and it stays for this entire week because it's a very slow mover. It stays between 0 and 1. Really slow mover. Taurus is our values. This can be our values and desires and peace and harmony and food and creature comforts. We think of love because we think of desire. We can go to the extreme level and we think lust. We can go to a more balanced, more beautiful image of that energy. And we think of the earth and the planet herself. And we think of nature. We think of the food as far as like the farming, the land, the dirt, right? We think of what is good for the planet is good for me, right? So we're getting a report card, right? About our values. Where are your values? What are they? And having this at 0 means it's at a critical degree. So what will that reveal to us? Well, it could reveal things about food. It could be reveal things about there could be money and prices. There could be things about commodities as far as the natural resources of the planet. But it could also have to do with the weather of the planet and the effects of the weather of the planet and the changes that we have observed or that we're in the midst of wherever it is that you live. Okay. Taurus is an earth sign. So we can't forget the realities of the banking and my income and my money, like what I own, my money in the bank and how I receive, not just my money, because that is one part of it, but how I receive in general. How do you receive love? Like, what is your love language? Look to your Venus. Venus rules Taurus. Okay. So that kicks the week off. That's a big deal. I think that's a big deal. That's going to shape a lot of things. Venus is at 26, which means she will be changing signs. We got Venus. Oh, there it is. I have it written down. Okay. So we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead of myself. But my point is that for the most part, our private planets, right? The sun, the moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, private planets, they're in the signs that they're in for this week, other than Venus. Venus makes a change. Venus will go and get to the critical degree. You kind of saw me do a cheat sheet on it already. So if we get back to it, Venus will actually move on the 12th. She moves into Leo. So that means that on the 11th, Venus is at 29 degrees. Remember, Venus will be at Cancer at 29 degrees. And Cancer energy, women, homes, emotions, feelings. Okay. Think of the mother wound. Think of all things that have to do with nurturing and history and the past. Remember, Cancer energy, ruler moon, it's the public. The emotions of the public will be a thing because we're talking about the 11th. So this is just me talking and touching on it real quickly here. I also will say that on the 11th, on this day, Mars is conjunct Uranus. They are conjunct. This happens. Okay. So Mars is about taking action. Uranus is somebody who's in charge. It's a person who has the authority to take action. Has the authority to take action. Usually, when there's a combination together, it usually can mean very swift, very firm because it's Mars. It's quick. There's no hesitation. Usually, when these two get mixed together, can even create a little bit of unpredictable energy that is powerful and shocking and surprising. And I'm only combining the keywords for Mars. So sometimes this can be a person with a weapon. That's Mars energy. So we think of police officers, we think of soldiers, we think of people who are allowed to carry weapons, but there are those who are not allowed, who are not permitted, right? There are those who unlawfully may be carrying a weapon, and those weapons can be of many kinds, but it's Mars, I was born for war, conjunct Uranus, which is I'm not thinking, I'm acting, and my actions will be to bring about surprise because it's with Mars. All right. So we got that covered. Now, we go a little bit further on the 11th, and all these things are relevant on this day. We have White Moon Lilith and Pluto and Black Moon Lilith and Sedna and Jupiter and Vertex, all relevant on the 11th. I have actually a separate chart for that day in and of itself, in and by itself. Now, granted, some of these things are slow movers. Sedna's not fast. Pluto's not fast, right? The vertex points very fast. And it is a thing on the 11th. It's at a degree in a sign where it is very relevant to this energy. So we will talk about it, okay? Yes, Jupiter and Black Moon Lilith are part of this as well. So we'll get there. We're going to go to the 12th. We got Venus moving into Leo energy. My values, who do I value? What do I value? That's Venus energy. Remember, the day before, she was at a critical degree on the 11th, at a critical degree in Cancer energy. Venus and the moon, Venus and Cancer, there's double feminine energy there. Double feminine energy because that's who Venus is. It represents feminine energy, and so does Cancer energy. It's the moon, all about the past. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So when we look to Mercury, because it's like, okay, so what are we talking about here? Well, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about whatever sign Mercury is in. Mercury's at 9 degrees in Leo. What's crazy about this? I know this is the day, this is a few days before. So when we get to the 11th, which we will get to, and I know my brain just keeps going, well, what about the 11th? What about the 11th? We'll get there. But at the beginning of this week, Mercury's at 9. Mercury does move fast, right? She's not a slow mover. So Mercury's going to move a couple of degrees. By the end of this week, Mercury will be there at 18 degrees. That's what that little purple little slash is for right there. So you see what's interesting, right? It's like at the beginning of this week, the moon is sitting where Mercury is going to end up. Okay, so it's like emotions are running high to some degree. Hercules is here. So Mercury will end up being conjunct Hercules at the end of the week. And so when we talk about the end of the week, that takes us all the way to the 15th, right? Takes us all the way to the 15th. Now, when I look at the chart on the 15th, not much changes. Not much changes. You have Venus changed sign already, right? We know Venus went into Leo, and I'll get back to that. I wanted to hold off just for a second on that because Mercury is here. And the Leo energy in general, now we have Venus and Mercury sharing Leo energy. This is authority energy. That's one example, authority. Someone who is in charge. I have the authority. It is my way or the highway type of energy. Okay. It is also It is also a creative energy, really, really creative, very colorful, a lot of flair. This is an energy that likes to laugh, that likes to joke around. These are comedians. This is also dramatic energy, high drama. You got Venus and Mercury here. So we should expect high drama. Maybe you'll notice it even in the way you laugh, possibly. And it doesn't have to mean drama as in heavy, but there can be something you do that's more colorful in the way that you dress. You look like a movie star. You wear your hair differently. You're wearing a scarf today, makeup, costumes, jewelry, something that sets you apart, something where you stand out. It's about standing out and your uniqueness, your individuality. Now, the thing about Leo energy is it has this lesson to learn, which is about moments of being alone. And normally this energy does really good with that because it's like, yeah, I'm alone. I'm the person at the top. I'm the boss, right? And bosses can't necessarily be friends with people that it's the boss of. It's a really hard dynamic. It's difficult, right? The authority and the professionalism has to be intact. Otherwise, some people tend to get relaxed and then take advantage and take it for granted. Oh, but I'm friends with the boss. I don't got to do my job. And, like that gets to that gray area. So the rules and the authority might be important here, right? Just remember that children are also part of this and sports, but so is having a good time with romance and dating and mating because it's Leo energy. It really wants to just have some fun. At the end of the day, it wants to have some fun. Now, this is the energy basically all the way from the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th. Okay, because you've got Mercury and Venus in Leo, and those Mercury and Venus are siblings. So they get along. So you might be having conversations with coworkers, with classmates, with siblings and neighbors. You hear more kids in the neighborhood. This is sports. Very athletic sign is Leo. A lot of people who are in professional sports, Olympians and stuff, like they have strong Leo energy somewhere in their chart usually, right? Very colorful, very standout. You think of those track and field stars and some of the really like just super colorful stuff that they wear, right? The other thing is this sun is going to move 7 degrees. 7 degrees. So what will happen is this sun at the beginning of this week at 16, if you add 7 to that, that means it gets to about 23 degrees, 23, 24 degrees in Cancer energy. Okay. So that speaks to values. It speaks to kind of a lot of the Taurus energy I talked about, and then a lot of Gemini energy, news and information and what we're hearing about. Okay. The other thing to get back to are these nodes. I spoke about the Black Moon Lilith. Well, actually, I didn't say Lilith, but I spoke about the South Node. A South Node is a release. Now, if you look carefully at the beginning of this week, this Mercury sitting here at this 9 degrees is already in a very strong sextile with the South Node. So by the next day, Mercury is still in a strong sextile with the South Node. You follow? Still in a strong sextile with Black Moon Lilith, even though Lilith is moving backwards. So she will be walking away from that. But the conversations, it's coworker energy, right? It's people that are your peers, people that you normally talk to. But think of devices and data and information when you think of Mercury and of public figures, celebrities, politicians, performances, actors and actresses, people who can be a little overly dramatic. This is that energy. It's Leo energy. It's another way of how Leo energy stands out. You look at some of those really, some of those, especially some of the old school actors, really, really old school. You've seen them in the black and white films, and some of them who are still alive, they've got like their greatest head of hair to this day. Sure, it might be all gray, grayish white, but they still got that great head of Leo hair. They got that mane, right? So I'm only sharing that to kind of connect that to whoever these public figures may be at this time. The thing is, at the beginning of this week, when we look at that 9 degrees Mercury, like that 9-degree mark, you can't deny, like, that's think Jupiter energy, right? Think Sagittarius, think Jupiter, think beliefs and religion, think all of that. The Saturn being in a retrograde, which, by the way, there's a separate video for that. So if you haven't seen it, I'll attach it or put it up here or over there, or wherever I'm going to put it to give you the more details. But I'll give you a little rundown here. Saturn is the rules. It's the restrictions. I'm setting the rules in place. This is the order. This is the rule. Like, this is how this works. This is in place. And if you don't follow the rules, Saturn is, like Simon says, you get thrown back to the front of the line and we start all over again. And it's not fun because then you're in last place, right? So Saturn in a retrograde means its rules become more pronounced. Its ability to say, hey, I have the authority and I'm exercising my authority. That's what Saturn does in Pisces, which for many people, they've been like, what the hell's going on? Like, why aren't there any, people talk about like the wheels of justice all the time. And they talk about, we think of the Congress, for the United States. And anyway, we're not going to go there. But my point is, not a lot of laws being written, right? Not any time with Saturn in Pisces. And well, that would be why. But now that Saturn is retrograding, its power, anytime you have a retrograde planet, becomes more pronounced. So that retrograde will likely see some restriction with Pisces themes. So there might be some rules that were there that nobody paid attention to before, and all of a sudden they're paying attention. There might be stuff because the history in the past and karma is big with Pisces energy. It's also subconscious energy, but it's kind of, in a way, a little bit like Leo in that these can be politicians. These can be public figures. These can be people who are overly dramatic, people who are trying to influence you. Think of actors and actresses. They're playing a role. They're playing a part. But if they're doing a good job at it, they're persuading you that they're truly authentic, aren't they? Those really good entertainers, they are very powerful in their performances. And so Saturn is doing something with that. There's a little bit of a restriction. So in other words, as I say it, we are sobering up our Piscean energy. The rose-colored glasses come off even a little bit more now with Saturn retrograding. Mars 21, Uranus 26. By the end of the week, it takes Mars 7 days to move 5 degrees. So there you go. By the end of the week, 15th, Mars is now conjunct Uranus, conjunct Elgo. Mars would be at 26 by the end of the week, by the 15th. You see? So Mars being at 21, 22, 23, and Uranus already being conjunct Elgo, you see that mixture there? It expands the width of Uranus's band. Think of 1 candle power and then 2 candle power when they get together, right? Think of, you got 1 horsepower and then it's 2 horsepower, right? So it expands that power and that energy. That's just for us to have that understanding of this time, to have that backstory about values and Hygeia. You see her right there at 0 degrees. She barely moves. So she's between 0 and 1. She barely moves. Okay. But this is wounds about my appearance, my freedoms, my body. We think of Eris, who is angry. Feminine energy, angry. Chiron is now conjunct Eris. This energy is going to have an effect. You've got Chiron conjunct Eris. You've pissed a woman off. A woman scorned. We'll pick up with a chart all by itself, specially designed for July 11th. We will pick up there, but remember, even if you don't go watch that other video, Jupiter conjunct Aldebaran. Take care, and as always, thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. Bye-bye.